What's up all my fine girls? No Pimple is Whit here again with another video. So today I am back with another video, and today's video is going to be really fun. Okay, so I have been really into like luxury fashion, luxury type of content here on YouTube, and so primarily like more like luxury handbags. And so I was watching this girl's YouTube channel, I cannot remember her name, but she did a video on the most iconic like purses from like designer brands. And I thought it was such a cool concept. I was like, you know what? I can switch that and do the most iconic palette from different makeup brands. So I have 10 here that I picked. There's too many brands out there, so maybe I can do different videos throughout the course of, you know, time. But I have 10 brands here that I wanted to discuss some of their top, like their iconic palettes. So of these 10 brands that I have here, 7 of them I actually have the actual palette in person. The other ones I'm going to insert pictures of because I do not own those palettes. But yes, I'm going to be going over what I think from some of these brands are their most iconic palette. Let me know if you think otherwise. You know, this is just kind of my opinion. It's not factual, it's just my opinion. But based off of the way I think things have gone with like how people have bought makeup and, you know, what people went crazy for, I would say why I think some of these are going to be considered their iconic palettes. Okay, so yet again, it's my opinion. You might think otherwise, and that is okay. Please let me know down below what you think, you know, would be a brand's most iconic palette from some of the brands that I listed here today. Okay, so, and let me also know down below other brands you want to see me do. If you guys do like this solid video, if you want me to do more videos, let me know down below so, you know, I can look into that. All right, so which one do I want to do first? You know, let us go ahead and do this one first, okay? So Anastasia Beverly Hills is going to be first up on my list. Anastasia Beverly Hills has honestly had a lot of great palettes over the years. You know, I feel like people just aren't really into buying makeup like that. I feel like they're trying to go in a new direction now, like, you know, their newer palettes. But nonetheless, Anastasia Beverly Hills has definitely been a trailblazer in the makeup space and has definitely had some iconic moments. And I think out of all her palettes, I would say the one that really just kind of like really changed the game, and I would say when you think of Anastasia Beverly Hills, you're going to think of this palette. I think is her most iconic is going to be none other than the Modern Renaissance. She really was a moment. Like when I say I worked at Sephora at the time when this palette came out, we could not keep this stock. Like we literally could not. And honestly, looking at it now in 2022, you're kind of like, what the heck was so special about this? Honestly, I don't know. But at her time, she was different. She was new. We honestly, makeup back then, like in the early 2010s, was really very limited. It was a lot of like, you know, neutral tone it was a lot of neutral tone type of themes. And to have something like this, like cranberry shades, mixed in what's still neutral, like she was really a moment. How did I end up getting this? I didn't even want this actually. I never really cared for the Anastasia palettes. I always just wanted her singles because at the time I was really into collecting singles. I did not want to buy palettes. I was just a single eyeshadow girl. But somehow when this finally got restocked, I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and give it to it. And I love this palette. I used her like crazy on myself on makeovers when I was working at Sephora, and I sold so many of these palettes, and I think till today this will probably be one of her most iconic palettes. Yes, she has other good ones like, you know, the original Amrezy palette, the Makeup by Mario palette, Jackie Aina's palette was definitely a moment, okay? But I think Modern Renaissance trumps all of them. Like she really is that girl. So I would give it to this palette. Okay, next up on my list, let's go ahead and do ColourPop. I think, you know, ColourPop definitely is a running joke with the amount of makeup they put out, the amount of palettes they put out. But you know what? We can't deny the fact that ColourPop really is, I mean, they're in their bag, okay? Even though, you know, we laugh at them, they really were that brand and still are kind of that brand. Like, you know, they're able to give you good quality for the most part with an affordable price. Like ColourPop really kind of came in and took over, like shook the table, okay? And I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. Even though I feel like I don't understand why they do the things they do, they definitely were a moment, you know. And for me in college, I loved their price point, okay? So this was kind of hard because ColourPop has so many palettes, and I was like, I don't know what would be their most iconic palette because they put out so much that it's hard to kind of narrow down what would be their most iconic one, because they've had moments where, you know, those palettes went crazy. People went crazy for, like, sold out like crazy. But you know what? I decided that I think their most iconic palette we're gonna go back to the basics. It's going to be their very first ever palette, and this is the Yes Please palette. Is this? Oh, hold on, I got that. Sorry, this is not the wrong. This is not that. Definitely the face palette that they came out with, the highlighter palette. Sorry. Where is the palette I'm talking about? Here we go. Got the right one. This is the Yes Please palette, and this is what the inside of this one looks like. And the reason why I chose this is because up until this palette came out, ColourPop was known for their super shock shadows. Like, that's what they put out. So when this palette came out and we finally got like a regular formula from ColourPop, people went crazy for it. Like, I was like, finally, because the super shock shadows weren't too bad, but they just were not my favorite. Like, they were primarily shimmers. You had to pair them with other stuff. So when ColourPop did this, it really shifted the game. And I think this is where that monster was birthed, and they now cannot stop making palettes. Like, they have made so many palettes. I would have to say, I think they're one of the brands that probably has the most, like, the largest catalog of eyeshadow palettes, because they put out makeup like crazy. Between them, Makeup Revolution and them are like tied, because they got an extensive catalog. But I'm gonna have to give it to her as the most iconic palette. You might think otherwise, and definitely let me know down below what you think is their, you know, popular most iconic palette. I'm gonna have to give it to the Yes Please palette, because child, they got too many things going on, and I'm just gonna give it to where it started off from the jump, you know. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Beauty Bay. So Beauty Bay, honestly, 2020 was her year, okay? 2020 was Beauty Bay's year. Like, granted, before then they had the Mama Mitchell palette the collab palette they did, and then they had that Nikki Tutorials palette they did, right? But I feel like what really kind of just, you know, pulled people in, like, oh, they making noise over here. Beauty Bay is making noise, and I think I might need to pay attention. I might need to listen in. And I wanted to say their palette, their most iconic palette, and you might think otherwise, and let me know why you think otherwise, but I think it's going to be the Book of Magic palette. And this is the inside of it. And let me tell you why I think this is their most iconic palette. This is like literally their most sought after palette, okay? Book of Magic was a moment, okay? And she still is a moment. She's no longer available. They've since gone on and done other stuff. They have different palettes now that can kind of give you the feel of this. But she was a moment. Like, we got a palette that was affordable, pigmentation out this world. The shimmers are just to die for. Like, they're so gorgeous. Book of Magic was a stunning palette, and I would say it has to be their most iconic palette. And now they have their the blue, whatever that palette is called, the blue and the purple palette that, you know, I did videos on them earlier this year. But they have those palettes which are supposed to be pretty much inspired by this. So if you weren't able to get your hands on this, they have those now. But this is how I know this is the most iconic palette. Even though people have those palettes, I feel like if Beauty Bay was to say, we're gonna go ahead and re-release this, the people who bought those palettes and were never able to get their hands on this, I think they might still go ahead and buy this. That's how you know you're iconic, when it's just like, y'all kind of already got the shades, but it's more so the fact that I have to own this. Like, there are people who literally kept asking Beauty Bay, please bring this back, and they just did not bring it back. They ended up bringing it back in a different format with the other palettes they came out with, but the Midnight palette, that's what it's called, Midnight. She's a moment, okay? She is iconic, honey. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into a palette that I do not have. The next brand that I want to talk about is Urban Decay. So Urban Decay, I mean, they're not really what they used to be, but you know, they're still hanging in there, okay? At least, you know, they're still afloat. They're still selling. I would say Urban Decay's most iconic palette till today, okay? She set some things up in the beauty community, okay? And that's going to have to be the original Naked palette. She truly was that girl. I want to say everybody and their mother had it. I personally never bought it because really wasn't my style, but I think she was perfect for the time that she came out. Like, it was like in the early 2010s. Like, I was in high school when that palette came out. So it definitely had to be like 2011, 2012 that the palette came out. And it was pretty shimmer heavy, and it's a neutral tone palette. It was perfect for when it came out, because at that time, people were not doing looks like this where they're able to, you know, blend matte to shimmers together. Like, you know, people were still trying to learn how to do their makeup. And so with that palette being shimmer heavy, the way we used to do our makeup back then was we'll take, like, you know, our one little favorite shimmer and put it across our lid. And so it was perfect. It was simple. It can work for anybody, grown, old, whatever you are. Like, It worked for everybody. When I say work at Sephora, I sold so many palettes during the holidays. We could not keep that in stock. Everybody wanted to get that for, you know, their daughter, their niece, their sister. Like, it was the perfect Christmas present. And I'm glad that, you know, they finally retired the palette, because I just don't feel like she would definitely sell and move the way she did back then in this day and age, because people have just, you know, they've elevated with their makeup. But she's definitely one of the most iconic palettes. And they went on to create a whole series of naked palettes. They had Naked 2, Naked 3, Naked Heat. They had the Safari theme one, the purple one. Like, they have gone on to do so much with that naked line, which I think they need to let that ship sink, please. Like, let the naked line go. You can be creative and innovative and come up with something different, but, you know, they're gonna beat that dead horse to the ground, and, you know, it is what it is. But she was definitely a moment. Okay, next up, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about another palette that I don't have, and it's gonna be by the brand Morphe. So, I mean, at this point, if you don't guess what I'm gonna say correctly, then I don't know if you've really been the makeup, the beauty community that long, okay? Because anybody who has been a part of this community knows exactly what palette I'm gonna mention, okay? I will say Morphe's most iconic palette, okay? Iconic palette would have to be the 35O. And hear me out, because I know some people might think Jaclyn Hill's original palette, which she definitely was a moment. But 35O, when I say they could not keep that stock. Like, they had so many relaunches of that palette, and every time it was sell out, sell out, sell out. Like, Jaclyn Hill, I think, is a reason why that palette just sold like crazy, because that woman is literally a born saleswoman. She can sell you anything. She can sell you, this is my hot comb. She can sell me my own hot comb. Like, she is just that good at talking about stuff, and I don't think she does it on purpose. Like, she's just so good at making you want stuff, you know? And she definitely helped put Morphe on the map. If 35O was a moment, she was the perfect palette for the time frame that she came out. It is the perfect orange tone, warm tone palette. Like, that was how we were doing our makeup back in the 2014, 2015, 2016 era, like, where, you know, we have the really orange burnt type of crease color, you know. Whew, times. It was perfect. She was everything. Like, I mean, and it was large. It had 35 shades in there, had matte shimmers, and, you know, it was affordable. People loved Morphe, and then they went on to make more. They made the 35O shimmer, the 35O matte. Like, they had so many renditions of that palette. Like, 35O was truly a moment, and I would say till today is probably Morphe's most iconic palette. Okay, she is that girl. All right, so next up on my list is going to be Juvia's Place. This was hard because Juvia's Place has some really good palettes. They have a pretty decent catalog of palettes, okay? And I don't know, I think this one is one that we might just disagree. You guys might think otherwise, because I had a hard time just picking one. And I still don't know if I fully agree with this one, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with this one, okay? And you let me know down below if you think otherwise, but I think Juvia's Place's most iconic palette, okay, is gonna have to be the Tribe palette. Okay, and let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you guys my my runner-up that I was initially gonna go with, but I decided to go with this one instead. But yeah, I would say the Tribe was, she was a girl. Like, I mean, she was a moment. Like, you know, people love this palette. I would say it's definitely memorable. And I don't know, I'm still torn, okay? I'm torn because Juvia's Place just has too many good palettes, too many good collections. Like, their Walhalla collection definitely is a moment. Like, people know about that. Their Nubian line, that's where they started from. People know about that. And I would say my runner-up that I was gonna go with initially was gonna be the Juvia's Place, the Masquerade palette. Yes, the Masquerade palette. And I'm so torn. I feel, because Masquerade is actually one of their best sellers. I went on their website and it's actually one of their best sellers. But I don't know if I'm fully convinced on this, but I'm gonna have to say, for the sake of this video, to just pick one, I'm gonna go with the Tribe palette. You guys might think otherwise, and let me know down below what you think is Juvia's Place's most iconic palette, because this was kind of hard to pick one from them, because they have some really, really good palettes in their collection that people really loved and, you know, are very, very noticed, you know, very, you know them. All right, moving on. The next brand that I'm going to, that I have here is going to be the brand Too Faced. And Too Faced has definitely had some moments in the past, but I would say, I think their most iconic palette is going to be the Sweet Peach palette. And I'm saying this because and let me show you guys what the inside of this palette looks like. This is what this looks like. Honestly, it's very boring. I really don't understand why people love this palette either. I got this for free working Sephora, so I mean, thank you. You know, I ain't gonna say no free stuff, but I would not have bought this with my own money. But I remember when this palette came out, we could not keep stock of this. Like, we literally could not keep this on the shelf. People were buying this like crazy. It also still, my peach scent has actually kind of worn out. Yeah, it actually has worn out. It's been a couple of years, so like it actually does not smell like peach anymore. It doesn't really have much of a scent to it left, but it smelled like peaches when you first buy it. Back to what I was saying. When I was working at Sephora, I remember like when we would like get stock of this, people would be lined up at the doors before we opened, trying to get their hands on this. Like, it was a moment. If you were a makeup girly, okay, and you didn't have the sweet peach palette, what were you doing? Like, what were you doing? I mean, I was gonna have a palette, but people really wanted this palette, and the YouTubers didn't help it anymore. You know, like, they were talking about it, using it, like, you know, back when all these bigger YouTubers were active on YouTube. Now they've all kind of left the platform. Like, we would eat up their videos. Like, we would eat up what they were saying. Like, they literally could sell us anything. Well, not me, but you know, for the most part, they could sell stuff. And I mean, this was in their prime, man. Do you remember the influencer trips and like, dang, like the beauty, the drama channels, like the beauty community was, she's not what she used to be, but man, in the prime of it, girl, it was a moment, okay? It definitely was a time to be alive, I can tell you that. And you know, every girl was literally making videos about this. Like, you wanted it. Like, there was such a FOMO factor. Like, I have to have that because, you know, you have the I can't even think of their names, like just the different, the Desi, the Katie's, on all of them, like, you know, talking about this palette. It's just like, I have to have it, you know? So I would say this is Too Faced's most iconic palette would be the Sweet Peach palette. All right, and I have another one that I have here on my list that I do not have. Okay, so Glamlite is next up on my list, and this is one that I think you guys may agree to disagree. And I actually had a runner-up, and I actually do own the runner-up, but I decided to go with this one instead. I would have to say, I think Glamlite's most iconic palette would be their Pizza palette. And hear me out. The reason why I think that is because Glamlite, they've kind of definitely shifted gears. They definitely do stick to themes. I've noticed that now as a brand, they're just a theme brand. Like, you know, they first started off with like food and stuff, and now, sorry, I just looked in the viewfinder, my hair was crazy. They started off with like, you know, food themed palettes, and now it's more so like, you know, they're just doing different collaborations with different, you know, entities and brands. And so they're definitely sticking to their overall theme of like, they are a theme-based brand pretty much. But I think the Pizza palette is one of their most iconic palettes because it was innovative, it was different. Even though it's not my style when it comes to like my palettes being stored, they're not, you know, as, you know, I don't like, you know, their packaging sometimes because they're cute and it's fun to unbox. But when it comes to storage wise, just like, ugh, it's kind of a hassle. But having a palette like this and it coming in a pizza box and you literally feeling like, wow, this brand really kind of went all out with their theme and packaging, I would just have to, you know what, I think Glamlite is iconic for their packaging. Let me just say that. I think that is what makes them iconic. I don't think they have the most iconic palette. I think just the fact that they're able to take a concept and just deliver it so well. Even though they have palettes that, you know, they're not they're a little redundant, I will give it to them. Glamlite is a brand that can take a theme and execute it phenomenally. Like, they are good at just that. And yes, Pizza palette, definitely I would say they went all out, okay? They went crazy with that. Even with their, and that was actually gonna be my runner-up, the cake palette. Just with that, like it coming in like an oven, and you know, it's so innovative. Like, they are definitely a brand that I feel like what makes them iconic is the fact that they are so innovative. I would give them just that. Okay, so I have 2 more palettes here, 2 more brands. I just had 10 brands that I picked for today's video. So like I said, let me know down below if you like this video so far and you want me to do more videos like this. Comment down below different brands, and I think this is a video that I can do so much more of because I don't have to actually own them to be able to do a video. So literally comment down below different brands that you want me to, you know, do if you do like this video. I would definitely, you know, look into that. All right, so next up is the brand Gimme Glow. Gimme Glow is definitely a brand that I love. I think they have amazing eyeshadows and amazing formulas. And I would have to say, I think one of their most iconic palettes, actually no, their most iconic palette is going to have to be the Vintage Rose palette. I mean, you cannot think of Gimme Glow and not think about this palette. Like, just look at this. This palette is such a trendsetter. Like, she is different, she is unique, she is beautiful. Like, she is just fun to look at. Like, every time I look at this palette, I get excited. Like, this gets me excited for makeup. I feel like they did such a phenomenal job at picking the colors and creating a beautiful color story. She is such a beautiful palette. The actual packaging of this, it's so gorgeous. Like, I think Vintage Rose, out of all the palettes, and they have some good ones, like their pastel palettes, the Vivid Rose, Christmas Morning, they got some really good palettes, but I think Vintage Rose takes the cake. She is the most iconic palette. Like, you think of Gimme Glow, boom, this palette. Like, I mean, at least for me, like, that's what I'm thinking of. I love this palette, and I love the quality from this brand. Amazing. Okay, and I think they're also based out of Texas, so, you know, shout out to all my Texans, okay? Anyways, I have one more brand here, and that is going to be Pat McGrath. And for Pat McGrath, I decided to just do, when it comes to her most iconic palettes, I'm just going to be going based off of her large mothership palettes. So for this, I'm taking out the running or taking out the consideration of her quads and 6-pan palettes because I don't own any of those. And honestly, they're just not really that memorable to me. So I just don't care. I think when people think of Pat McGrath, they think of like the 10-pan palettes. Like, they come to your mind first. You know, of course, that price point definitely comes to your mind first. Like, why is this charging over $100 for a palette? I don't know. You gotta ask Auntie Pat. You gotta ask her that, why she is charging us that much. Why are you charging the girlies that much money? And why the hell are we paying it? I don't know. I feel like I'm in a toxic relationship with this woman, and I can't help it. Like, I can't help this. I can't shake her. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So for their palettes that, you know, their large mothership palettes. By the way, I do have the mothership 10. I finally got it. I did finally end up buying it. But anyways, I would say out of the 10 palettes that she had for her large mothership palettes, the most iconic one to me is going to be the mothership 5. And I know mothership 1 through 3 was kind of where she kind of got her start, and, you know, it definitely pulled people in, but I think mothership 5 is really where, you know, if you were not convinced just yet on why you should be paying this much, which I don't think a lot of people are still convinced, like, I still don't understand why it costs this much. But I feel like this is definitely what kind of pulled people in. Like, you know, this palette was definitely one of her best palettes, her best work. Like, I mean, I love her. Like, I love this palette, and I think she's iconic. So you get the 4 special shades over here, and these colors are out of this world. And then you get, like, you know, her regular formula over here. I mean, she is just a gorgeous palette. Definitely memorable. I feel like this was like the turning point where a lot of people just kind of, like, you know, started to give in and finally start to buy Pat McGrath's palettes that are at this price point, because it's just like, why? But when you swatch this in store, when you play with this in store, when you see this in person, it is just like, you're like, I gotta have this, okay? I gotta have it. And I mean, I love her, like, and also, like, the packaging. Like, Pat McGrath was really onto something with this, like, packaging. Like, it feels luxe, okay? It feels like, you know, yes, I'm spending a lot of money, but I feel like you know, she's putting the money into something. And I would say, I think mothership 5 is one of her, or is her most iconic palette within her lineup. I think she really is. So yeah, you guys, that is my video here. My top 10, or not my top 10, but the 10 brands that I decided to discuss today and what I think some of their most iconic palettes are. So like I said throughout the video, comment down below if you agree, if you disagree with some of my choices. Let me know why. You know, be respectful in the comment sections. You know, I'm always open to, I find that it's a fun, you know, this is fun to discuss and talk with you guys in the comment section. Also, comment down below if you want me to do more videos like this, and if you do, let me know other brands that I did not mention in today's video that you would like for me to go ahead and talk about as well. But yes, that is that with today's video, and until next time, I will talk to you beauties later. Bye.